Before this video gets underway, I gotta give a big shout out to my guys, Greg, Ryan, and Tyler on the Grindline Pod because I made an appearance on that show. Now, at the time of recording this audio, the episode that we shot yesterday on Monday, February the 6th, the episode is not uploaded yet, but be on the lookout on their YouTube channel and all their podcast links if you want to see me on the show talking about Red Wing stuff and a few other things as well. We kind of get some good flow going on a bunch of other stuff. But today's Red Wings related video is not a good one. Because what we're doing is we're going over onto Twitter and looking at some of the new rumors that popped up regarding Jakub Vrana. Now, last time we had talked about Vrana, we made the entire video discussing whether or not he is going to go back to Sweden, and there was an apparent deadline of February 15th, apparently, as to the last day as to whether or not Vrana could go back to Sweden or stay in the NHL. I'm not sure whether or not that's because there's an SHL sort of clause as to when they're allowed to get guys back by a certain time, or if it is instead an NHL thing, like, oh, you have to have guys sent over before this date or else they're not allowed, something like that. I'm not really too sure on the transaction details and limits in between the NHL and the SHL, but we had ourselves that rumor pop up on Expressen.se, which is essentially a Swedish newspaper that goes out there and publishes hockey-related stories once in a while. So that video was the last one on this channel talking about Vrana, but the thing is, ever since then, we have seen more and more rumors that have popped up that are spelling more doom and gloom than we had initially expected. Now, before we get into that, I wanted to look at just the profile in general, just go over this one more time in case you missed the last video. But Jakub Vrana was a former first-round pick in the 2014 draft by the Washington Capitals, and, I mean, he's 26 years old right now, pretty much in the smack-dab middle of his prime. He's making $5.25 million until the end of 2024, and ever since making his debut with the Wings in 2021 after getting sent over in the Anthony Mantha trade, Vrana has been a very good player just points per game wise. He had 11 games played in his first season after being traded over in Detroit, 11 points. His first full season, which wasn't technically a full season because he was sidelined with injuries, he had 26 games played, 13 goals, and 19 total points. Even this season, he had 2 games played with the Wings, a goal and an assist, before being placed in the NHL's player assistance program, then which we're not going to go out there and speculate why that was. But either way, the point I'm trying to make here is that Vrana is a talented player, a potent goal scorer that can just score endless amount of goals, and that was a really good defining trait of his when he was suiting up with the Red Wings in the admittedly limited sample he has had over the past 3 years. Now, ever since he had returned back from the Players Assistance Program, he got waived, sent to Grand Rapids, he cleared, he's been playing over there, he struggled earlier on, he was scratched a little bit here and there, and there was some speculation as to whether or not that had to do with the veterans rule or whatever, but long story short, he started to get his feet under him again when the past few weeks started to roll around. If you go over to Vrana and his game log, take a look at the past, the past 7 games that he has. He's got himself 6 goals in his last 7 games and 2 assists as well. So he is over a point per game in that stint from about mid-January-ish. He's really started to get his groove back, and you can see in a lot of these clips of him scoring, he is scoring Jakub Vrana-type goals, walking right in, down the wing and sniping it by the goalie, planting himself in front, receiving a pass, and then sniping it by the goalie. He does that quite often. And you can see that when he does score these goals, he's celebrating a decent amount. He's happy to be scoring these goals. You could see the look on his face when he puts the puck in the back of the net. It's almost like he's saying, yes, I finally got it, in a triumphant call of elation. He's going out there and expressing legitimate happiness when he scores. Hockey and scoring goals, it's fun for him. And so, with all of the Red Wings problems that we have seen this season, they're not in the position where you could say they're living up to the hype that Yzerman built up for this team with all the acquisitions, Sherratt, the Cops, Perron, etc., etc. Even though a lot of these guys have been okay, some of these guys have been a lot less than okay, the Red Wings in general have just been a worse team than expected. You could say Jakub Vrana should be the antidote. He is a goal-scoring guy, he's starting to get his legs under him, he is producing again. And the Red Wings are, they have a cap hit of his at $5 million a year that is going to be the same whether or not he's in the NHL or the AHL. Why not play him with Detroit, see if he can do that goal-scoring thing at the National Hockey League level once again like he had been the entire time he was in Detroit, and try to capitalize on the player profile that is Well, this is where things get weird, because after that report came out the other day saying that he could be going back to Sweden, we had ourselves Nick Alberga, who does podcast work with SDPN Sports. He's also a writer for Daily Faceoff's Fantasy Crew, and he said this on Twitter the other day: "For those waiting on a Jakub Vrana recall, don't hold your breath. While anything's possible, I'm hearing it's highly likely he has played his final game with Detroit. The likeliest scenarios are a trade or an off-season buyout." And this is where things get very strange, because when you come to a buyout, for example, what a buyout does is it takes the remaining amount of money a player is owed, it cuts that into 2/3, and then it extends that money to be paid out to the player over the course of 2 times the remaining length of the contract. Now, that's a pretty complicated sentence I just went out there and said, but essentially Vrana has, what is that? Base salary, $5.75 million. Let's just say, for the sake of saying things, he's going to get $5.75 million for next season. And so if you do the calculations when you're able to do a buyout, let's assume you do a buyout on June 15th, 2023, he would have about $5.75 million remaining. The total cost is going to be $3.8 million, because that's 2/3 of 5.75, and that will be paid out over the next 2 years rather than 1, because he's got 1 year remaining on his deal regularly. It's complicated, but the Red Wings are going to have a cap hit of $1.4 million next season and $1.9 million the season after that if they do buy out Vrana. But then, of course, there's the entire angle of exploring a trade instead. Now, you could say, wait a minute, he just cleared waivers. Is he going to get traded? Is a team going to want him after saying no to getting him on for free? Well, this is what David Pagnotta went out there and said. Nick's info here on Vrana echoes what I've been told about the situation too. It is very unlikely that Vrana rejoins the big club this year, and the Wings are intent on moving him one way or another this offseason. Vrana has 1 year left in his contract after this season at a 5.25 AAV. Now, the thing is, and I talked about this yesterday on the Grindline pod, again, I'll plug them once more because if you're a Red Wings fan, you're probably listening to this video. The thing is with this Vrana situation, there's gotta be some other reason of why things are going on the way that they are. And the fact is, we're just not going to know that reason. We're not going to know it now, we're not going to know it next year, we might not even know it for the next 10 years. Maybe we're not going to know it ever. Maybe this is something just lost in the sands of time, in the vault that is Steve Yzerman and his management crew, that never sees the light of day. Because there is no rational explanation, based off of everything that we have available to us in the public, that says, okay, the Red Wings have a reason to trade away Vrana, or to buy him out, or to not try to use him in the NHL, or to keep him down there with the Grand Rapids Griffins. There's no use in bringing this guy back to Detroit and seeing if that goal-scoring aspect of his is still there. There's got to be something else, either with Vrana himself, or with the Red Wings and their managerial perspective on what they see Vrana as to why this entire thing is going down the way it is, if we assume that Pagnotta and Nick Alberga are both correct in their sources that indicate the Red Wings want to move Vrana out in the first place. It's unfortunate because we just don't know. And at the end of the day, based off of what we can go off of, I mean, it's an even more unfortunate and disappointing story to follow, because there was potential with this guy. There was legitimate talent there, and the Red Wings could use that sort of talent more than ever right now, especially when you consider the future of guys like Tyler Bertuzzi and Dylan Larkin too. I mean, Vrana was a good player, and he was the return for the Anthony Mantha trade. So there was a lot of expectation put upon this guy the moment he stepped foot in Detroit, and in my opinion, he lived up to it. I mean, half a goal a game pace in the last season's worth of play he had. He had a goal in the 2 games that he had this season, and then, of course, in the prior season when he got traded over to Detroit in the first place, I mean, 11 games played. He got 8 goals. Very good. He's a very, very talented player who was just scoring goals and goals and goals. And unfortunately, the Red Wings are not going to be trying to capitalize on that talent set that he has anytime in the near future, if we assume that these reports from David Pagnotta and Nick Alberga are 100% correct. So you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this entire Vrana thing, whether or not you think there's another reason as to why this is going down the way it is, or whether or not it's proper, how it's being handled, or whatever. It's just unfortunate, man. But the comment section is your floor either way. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.